Welcome back, Egyptology lovers. Today we are discussing the sitting statue of the scribe Horemheb, who eventually became pharaoh of Egypt near the last pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, after the king or pharaoh I, who was the vizier of Tutankhamun. So Horemheb served as both chief in command of the army for both I and Tutankhamun, and this sculpture, which is a sitting scribe, it was done before Horemheb became pharaoh. And every person who wanted to be respected as a literate scribe created one of these type of statues. You can find this at the Metropolitan Museum. I'll add the link in the description. Horemheb was this statue was probably created between 1336 to 1323 BC. And this is during the time of the later post-Amarna period. And the hieroglyphs that you see here are pretty much an extract of the papyrus scroll that is carved out here on this cryogdanorite stone. And what you see is the hieroglyphs starting here and working their way down and all the way to the very end where you see the broken arm. And it's the same over here. We're going to start on the left and then work our way up and down all the way to the very end of the 22 columns. Over here, simply I'm going to say is a scene from the Book of the Dead. This is going to plate 3 of the Book of Ani, and this is pretty much the judgment of the heart and the balance with the feather of Ma'at. And here you have Thoth, the god in which we are pretty much discussing over here. And I'll come to this once we get to a certain point in the translation. But that's it. So we're just going to get into the description. This is generally, let me give you a synopsis. It's pretty much just a praise and worship to Thoth. This is a small little title contribution to him, and then who Thoth is and what he does, and then who he is to Ra, the sun god, how important he is, and what he does for the sun god on the boat. And pretty much at the end, it finishes it off with another continuing hymn to him, and that's the end of it. That's really what we have. So let's begin, not to take too much time, and we'll start over here on the left. The hieroglyphs are facing the left, so we're reading from left to right and working our way to the very end over here. So stay tuned for that. And along the way, I'm sorry for stopping every few seconds here. Let me just say that you'll see a lot of hieroglyphic words that repeat, but that doesn't mean they're all the same words. Much like English and other languages, you have synonyms that have different meanings, and we use different words for different ideas. Hieroglyphs do the same. They use the same word for different meanings. So it really depends on the context. Hieroglyphs is a language of tenses, and depending on the position of the words, you would read them a little differently. So stay tuned for that, and we're going to go ahead and jump on there. I will stop eventually and point out some interesting hieroglyphic symbology in the text itself that kind of harks back to the period and just how Egyptians thought. So here we go. Starting with column 1. Worship of Thoth, the son of Ra and the moon. Beautiful in emergence or coming forth, Lord of appearances, who illuminates the gods, of hereditary noble, the high official, the fan bearer of the royal or the king's right arm, the great chief in command, so the general of the army, the royal scribe, and here is his name, Horemheb, and this is a determinative for a scribe or a sitting person, so he's not yet pharaoh. And then we have the title of true of voice, my Haru, may his heart basically be true. And so begins the text that gives praise to Thoth right now. So we're going to start over here, and it's going to say, hail to you, the moon and Thoth, or Jehuti, the bull of Hermopolis, which is the cult center of Thoth, who dwells in the Hermopolitan necropolis, right over here, the passerby of the gods, the knower of secrets and the establisher of their utterance, who distinguishes one report from the other, who judges everyone, the wise one in the bark of millions, who waits for the human beings to join the bark, basically. And again, I'm stopping just to describe a little bit. So the word for people is remech, Here you have the determinatives of a man, a woman, and the plurality strokes to denote many people. But here you have a sun with a stretching disc, so rays. So this really harks back to the Amarna period where the sun of Aten was worshipped. And generally this was added as a symbology to denote that this was for a time of the Amarna gods. So the Aten gods. So that's a little nice determinative symbology there. So who waits for the human beings basically to join the bark, and who knows a person by his utterance, and who denounces the affairs against its doer, and he who satisfies Ra, which is the sun god, and who informs, or you who informs, basically speaking of Thoth, you who informs, the sole Lord, he who knows everything that has happened. Now we jump over here. At dawn, when he calls in the sky, and not he forgetting of the report of yesterday. So he always knows the information. The sprout, which continues here, the sprout of her night bark, and who makes, right here you can see, who makes the day bark content, and who stretches out his arm at the prow of the day bark, pure of face, he who takes the stern rope of the day bark for him, and rejoicing as the day bark rejoices in the festivals, on the crossing in the sky, who overthrows the rebel serpent. Now, Apep is the rebel serpent. He is the great chaotic serpent. Now, Egyptians believed that the hieroglyphs had magics. They could come alive. And the symbology wasn't just a symbol, but really a belief system. And here you can see the hieroglyph of a serpent. And he's got 4 knives, 3 on the top to cut the twists, and then the head. Because the belief system is that the Egyptians, even if they put a snake, they didn't want it to come back alive and kill them, so they killed it before it could kill them by putting these knives. So that's a little nice synopsis right there. So let's continue again. Who overthrows the rebel serpent and breaks open the western horizon for the gods, or the great Aeneid, which is the 9 gods. And you can see over here the Aeneid, the 9 gods. They're just missing 2 more, but that's the 9 gods of the Aeneid. They're in the judgment hall. Okay, let's continue. Who are in the night bark, for who give adoration to Thoth or Jehuti. Now, this is where Horemheb will say what Thoth says to Ra, the god. So here we go. Now, Thoth saying, right, the sayings to him, hail of Re, and then continues here, whom Re favors. So Re favors Thoth for what he does. The gods have become elated and repeating what your Ka loves. Now it's missing here the mur, but loves and connects with here, loves. Now we're going to go here. You who open the way to the place of the boat. You do what is necessary against the rebel serpent, again, the great snake Apep. You lop off or cut off his head. You shatter his ba, so even the great snake had a ba, much like the Egyptians. You take his essence into the fire. You are the god who performs his slaughter. So Thoth performs the slaughter by killing him. Nothing can be done without you, the orderly one, the son of order, who came forth from her flesh. Savior of Horakti, or Rehorakti, and you can see him over here, Rehorakti, which is the Horus of the horizons, of the two horizons, who enters as a wise one in Heliopolis, the cult center of Ra, the place maker, so the place maker of the gods, who knows the secrets and revealing, which continues here, revealing the matters. Let us worship Thoth, the accurate plummet. Now you could see Thoth here, and there is a plummet that is basically controlling the balance, and he is considered the accurate plummet. And what you have here is the word, the plummet itself, and the word het or tech, and then you have the word accurate. And over here you have two fingers, which basically means accuracy for the Egyptians, and then of course you have a papyrus for an abstract thought. So let's say this one more time. Let us worship Thoth, the accurate plummet, who is in the balance. So you can see the balance here, the balance, who rejects disorder because he is the orderly one, and accepts the one who is not inclined to make transgression. Continuing here now, the vizier. Now, pharaohs had viziers, which were second in command, and Thoth was considered the vizier of Ra, so it's associated with him. So the vizier who judges the affairs and who resolves the conflicts. Now, this is the word for conflict, and you see the very bottom here, you have the Set dog, and Set was considered the god who killed his brother Osiris, and he is pretty much the god of conflict and chaos. So he's been added here in the determinative to denote conflict. So let's say it again. Who resolves conflict in peace. The scribe of the mats, so scribal people would usually sit on mats, reed mats, who fixes the scroll or the papyrus roll, and who drives off falsehood, but accepts the one who is the bearer of healthy greeting, who supports the oath maker in the midst of the Aeneid, once again, the 9 gods of the Aeneid, and who raises up the one who has been ignored, who is wise of face of the one who has gone away or astray. He who remembers the fleeting moment of the two places, who reports the hours of the night, and whose words, or his words, remain for eternity, and who enters into the duat, or the netherworld or underworld, the duat, and finds out or knows what is in it, and registers them into his name list. So the list that he carries, the names of all human beings. So he writes them all down. So that is the completion of the translation here. You can find this as well as a full translation on the Met Museum in this section of this particular post. I'll put that in the description. You can read it over there. But that's it. That is the division of the text. And this is the hieroglyphs for Horemheb, just the area where he is sitting down here in regards to Thoth. So if you're a lover of the Egyptian god Thoth, of scribes and justice and order, well, this should be a nice little insight to him. So thank you for watching, and please leave any comments or questions. I'll be happy to answer them. And thank you again for watching. Take care.